friends! Yesterday we read Two Foxes in our big book about kindness. Good readers read stories more than once to help them understand the story and characters better, because when we read a story more than once, it helps our brain pick up on more details. So today we're going to read Two Foxes again. This is the front cover, back cover, and the title. The title of this book is Let's Be Kind, and this is the spine. Now remember, this big book is special because it doesn't just have one story. It has a whole bunch of stories. When I open it up, I see the title page. That's just to remind you of the title in case you forgot. And when I turn the page again, I see a special place called the Table of Contents. The Table of Contents tells you where to find things. Remember, our story is called Two Foxes, and when I move my finger across the page, I see it's on page 6. So I'm going to turn to page 6, and there it is, Two Foxes. This is the title, author, and the illustrator. And remember, the author writes the words and the illustrator draws the pictures in the story. And those pictures are connected to the words on the page. Since this is the second time we're reading the story, we will be doing a close read. That means we will be taking a closer look at our story. Our focus this time is sequence. Sequence is the order in which events happen in a story. The author often uses words that show the time and order of events, and the sequence will often influence how the characters behave and what happens to the plot of our story. They'll use words like first, next, then, last, or beginning, middle, end. Those words all tell about the sequence, or the order that things happen. We will also be looking at strategies the author uses so we can learn to be better writers. The story element we will focus on today is genre knowledge. Authors use knowledge of different genres to make stories more enjoyable or fun to read. Remember, folk tales are stories that have been told and retold from generation to generation, and they usually teach a lesson or a moral. They also usually have animals or objects that speak, and actions and words are often repeated. And don't forget, friends, the characters who are good usually triumph over those who are evil, and that means good wins. All right, friends, let's read our story.
Essential question. Why is it important to be kind? Two Foxes. Watch me jump, Blaze yelled to his brother Jay. He took a flying leap across the creek. Great jump, Blaze, said Jay. Jay and Blaze were brothers, and they were also best friends. As I think about the genre of folk tales, I look for ways the author used elements of the genre, such as animals that talk. And on this page, we have two foxes that are talking and having a conversation. The quotation marks here tell the exact words that the foxes are saying. The words that the animals speak help to tell the story. I will look for other animals that talk as I read on. Jay and Blaze trotted along the creekside. The forest began to wake up around them. Then they heard it. Move over, said a loud voice. You scratched me, came the reply. There's no room for you. The possums were at it again. The foxes watched as the possums competed with one another to get the best seat on their mother's back. It's my turn to ride on her neck, one yelled. Not if I can push you off, said the other. As I recall the events described on pages 8 and 9, I will list them in sequence or order. First, Jay and Blaze walk along the creek. Next, they hear loud voices. Then, the foxes watch as the possum babies compete for the best seat. Last, the possums keep yelling at each other. As I pay attention to the order of the events in the story, I can better understand what happens at the beginning, middle, and end of a story. After a while, the conflict ended and they settled down on their mother's back. Jay and Blaze wondered, is this how a family should act? The two brothers decided to give it a try. I can beat you to the old hollow log, Jay challenged his brother. Blaze was younger, but he was faster. He raced ahead. He watched Jay from the corner of his eye. I'm going to win, he thought. The author used the words, after a while, to begin this page. These time words tell the reader that the events on this page happen after the events on page 9. Now, I will recall the events described on pages 10 to 11, listing them in sequence using order words. First, the possums settle down. Next, Blaze and Jay wonder if they should compete like the possums. Then, Jay challenged his brother to a race. Last, Blaze runs faster and thinks he is going to win. Just then, Jay tripped on a tree root and fell. Jay! Blaze raced over to his brother. He looked worried. I always seem to be the one who falls, said Jay, smiling. Blaze laughed and brushed the leaves off his brother's fur. The author used the time words just then to begin this page. These words tell the reader that the events on this page happen immediately after the events on page 11. Now I recall the events described on page 12, telling them in sequence. Jay tripped and fell. Blaze ran to his brother, worried. Jay smiled and made a joke. Blaze laughed and brushed the leaves off his brother's fur. Nearby, two parrot sisters, Lila and Lainey, were arguing. Lila had more colorful feathers than Lainey. Lainey got even with her sister by copying her. My feathers are brighter than yours, Lila said. My feathers are brighter than yours, Lainey repeated. Lainey copied everything her sister said until Lila burst into tears. Mrs. Parrot then ordered the sisters to apologize to one another. Should we try arguing with each other? Asked Jay. Okay, said Blaze as he cleared his throat. I have such excellent fur, Blaze began to brag. It's so shiny and bright. Well, you're right about that. That's why Mom and Dad named you Blaze, Jay answered. Thanks, Jay. I can't imagine being called anything else, Blaze said cheerfully. As I read, I look for ways the author repeats words, events, or ideas. This is common in folk tales. Throughout this story, Blaze and Jay have walked through the forest and seen different animals in disagreement. After the foxes see a conflict, they try to repeat the conflict. First, they saw conflict among the possums competing for a spot. Then, Blaze and Jay try to compete by racing. Next, the foxes overhear the parrots arguing, so Blaze and Jay try to argue too. In both instances, the foxes are kind to each other. Their kindness keeps conflicts from happening. With that, the brothers began to jog through the forest again. Suddenly, they heard a noise. They darted behind some trees and bushes. From a distance, they heard loud, gruff voices, followed by angry squeals. Let's go see where those noises are coming from, said Blaze. Jay nodded in excitement. The sounds grew louder as they approached a clearing in the forest. I'll see if it's safe, said Jay. He always looked out for his younger brother. As I read, I look at the sequence of events as the author tells the story. I look for words that help move the story along. This page begins with that to tell the reader the foxes are moving on in the story. The next sentence begins with the word suddenly, which signals that there's a new event. What is the new event? Oh, the foxes hear a noise. What do the foxes decide to do? They decide to go see where the noises are coming from. So as we read, we see how the noises lead to what the foxes do next. Jay peeked around a tree. he saw a very strange sight. There were several young boars, and they looked angry. They were each taking turns scraping their tusks against a tree. "What are they doing?" asked Blaze. Jay shrugged and said, "Let's move closer to listen. Maybe we can find out." "I'm the oldest, and I have the sharpest tusks. Watch this." A young boar scraped his tusks against a tree. Bark flew in all directions. Jay and Blaze listened to the boar brothers. "You may be older, but I'm stronger," said a slightly smaller boar. As I continue reading the story, I continue to identify the sequence of events on these pages. When Jay and Blaze get closer, they see young boars that look angry, and they are scraping their tusks against a tree. Sometimes I may forget some details, and I may think, why do the foxes decide to move closer? So then I reread a part of the story. After rereading the last part of page 18, Jay shrugged and said, "Let's move closer to listen. Maybe we can find out." I see the foxes move closer because they want to find out what the boars are doing. If I wonder, what do the foxes find out when they move closer, I can reread page 19 and I can recall or remember that the boars are arguing. The older brother did not like this. He dug his hoof into the dirt. "He's getting ready to charge," whispered Blaze. His eyes grew wide. Then the boars charged at each other. They crashed very hard. Jay and Blaze ran. They did not stop until they were back at the creek. Jay asked, "Will you help me look for some berries?" Blaze was glad Jay did not want to fight like the boars. The foxes decided that it was better to get along than to argue. As I read the ending of the story, I look for elements of folktales. Authors that write folktales know that those stories end with good or over evil and a moral or a lesson learned. So, does good win over evil in this story? Yes, I think it does. The good and kind brothers avoid conflict and disagreements, and that can be a type of evil. Did the foxes learn a lesson? Yes, they learned that it was better to get along than to argue.
Now, yesterday we looked at how stories can help us learn and understand new words. Let's look at some other new words. I'm thinking of the word arguing, and I know I can find it on page 13. Let's see. Here it is. So let's look at our selection. When you argue, that means that you disagree or have a different idea. It could mean fighting or, let's find out. Let's see. Nearby, two parrot sisters, Lila and Lainey, were arguing. Lila had more colorful feathers than Lainey. Lainey got even with her sister by copying her. Now, it says that they're arguing about whose feathers are more colorful. Do they agree that one of them is more colorful? No, they disagree. And remember, arguing means that you don't agree, you disagree. They disagree, they're arguing. Let's look at another word. This is a very important one. This word is apologize. When you apologize, that means you're saying sorry. Let's read this together. Lainey copied everything her sister said until Lila burst into tears. Mrs. Parrot then ordered the sisters to apologize to one another. So Mrs. Parrot sees that one of them is very upset and that they're not getting along, and she wants them to apologize because when you hurt someone's feelings, it's important to say sorry and to really mean it from your heart. All right, let's look at some other words. On page 17, there's this word, excitement. That means feeling stirred up or eager. You're just really looking forward to something. Let's read about it. "Let's go see where those noises are coming from," said Blaze. Jay nodded in excitement. Now, remember, that means that they're eager, they're looking forward to it. So Jay is eager to know, he's looking forward to finding out what those loud sounds are. All right, one last word, friends. It's on page 18, and that word is against. Against means that next to, touching, I am against the board. My hand is against the book. Let's read about it. Let's see. I'm going to start. Oh, here. There were several young boars, and they looked angry. They were each taking turns scraping their tusks against a tree. And so when I read those words and I also look at the pictures and I know that against means next to or touching, I know that means that they're scraping their tusks against. They are scraping it on. They are touching the tree with their tusks. Wow, I really enjoyed it reading Two Foxes again with you today. I can't wait to talk about it more on our pods. Do your best to hold all those ideas in your brain. I'll see you later.